Hi there. Welcome to Islam and the Idea of America. In this podcast, we'll explore the most intriguing relationships, thought-provoking concepts, and amazing stories. If you have a curious mind, you're in the right place. Teaching at American University in the past 10 years, I've enjoyed exploring and learning with my students. I love learning every day, and I love sharing every day. In our journey together, I hope to explore, dig deeper, and cultivate new relationships with you and with historical characters. In some episodes, we'll immerse ourselves into captivating stories with a journey through time. At other times, I'll have a guest for discussion, and we'll hear from an accomplished writer of a fascinating book. If you ask why to join this journey among 1,000 other podcasts out there, well, here is one reason. A counterargument to Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations cannot be a dialogue of civilizations. The counterargument, rather, should smash the myth of the binary, trashing the fictitious divide between West and East. When Huntington was calling this divide the West versus the rest, he was not making an original argument, of course. 100 years earlier, Rudyard Kipling, the author of the notorious poem, The White Man's Burden, was disseminating the same saga. East is East, and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. Of course, Edward Said helped us to understand why Kipling and other imperial voices were propagating these fictitious binaries. Religious East versus secular West, mystical East versus rational West, backward East versus modern West, and so on. Islamic East has become the ideal other for the West. It was a purposeful projection of an ideal alien to define Western self and justify brutal colonization. As we delve into Edward Said's Orientalism, I realized, however, my students at American University are often unfamiliar with European and American intellectual writers who were inspired by Islam and Muslim intellectual heritage. From John Locke to Thomas Jefferson, from Lady Mary Montagu to William Blake, conversations on Islam were integral to shape what we call West today. My Muslim and non-Muslim students alike are fascinated to hear a rich intellectual genealogy that links Islam as a direct interlocutor in European Enlightenment process. By only focusing on negative Orientalist depictions in the Western literature, there may appear a blind spot. We can miss the big picture at large. And if we miss it, we cannot break the fictitious binary of East versus West. As Marshall Hodgson reminds us, the line from ancient Greece to the Renaissance to the Industrial Revolution is a highly selective, Eurocentric reading of history, hence an illusion. Without the cumulative history of the whole Afro-Eurasian oikoumene, of which the Occident had been an integral part, wrote Hodgson, the Western transmutation would be almost unthinkable. Famous philosopher Norman Brown cannot agree more. Here is what he told his students at the University of California in the 1980s. The recognition of the reality of Islam was for me a way to get out of the narrow historical framework of Western civilization. As a classics professor, I had assumed all through my teaching career that I was teaching something that you could call Western civilization. Coming to recognize the reality of Islam for me is to recognize that Islam has just as much right to claim to be the synthesis of Hebraism and Hellenism as Western civilization, or whatever it is we are, has the right to do. That is to say, Islam is not another cultural tradition. It is not specifically, of course, another Oriental cultural tradition, with that implied traditional distinction between West and East. It is not another Oriental tradition. It is an alternative, a rival interpretation of our tradition. For some time, I have been in the search for a genealogy. In my ongoing journey, I am touched by the countless stories of cross-fertilization. Now I'm ever more convinced that seeing East in the West and West in the East can radically transform rigid perspectives. It is for sure a panacea to get rid of unnecessary binaries that are reproduced by today's toxic identity politics. My intellectual journey brings me delight. To share it, I decided to begin telling the story of a shared history. First stop in our journey will be the colonial America in its early years. We'll follow the footsteps of a young man in Massachusetts, Sir Henry Vane, a dangerous man for his time due to his Republican and libertarian ideas. As dangerous as to be called Al-Quran Vane for his enemies, associating him with Islam's holy book. I'll see you there.